Good evening. It's so good to be here tonight. Tonight, I propose to you that the hard moments in your life, the grief and difficulty that you've encountered, the screams of failure, are not the breaking of you, but in fact, the making of you. I've experienced that in my own life. At 2 days old, I was abandoned. No mama to nurse me, no daddy to rock me to sleep. I became one of 25 million orphans. And I don't know about you, but abandonment at birth will mess with the soul. It'll mess with your view of acceptance and belonging. A few years after that, in the 3rd grade, a little girl came up to me and told me that we could never be friends. And when I asked why, she said, because your skin is muddy and it's dirty, and I could never be friends with you. And it broke my little 3rd grade heart. It was not the last time I ever encountered discrimination for the color of my skin, but it was the first. And I felt so ashamed to be me. It was the first time I cried over the color of my skin, begging my parents to turn it a different color. Years and years later after that, when I was 21, I met a handsome Englishman. I mean, truly tall, dark, and handsome, and that accent did not hurt at all. And we met at a summer wedding in London, and it was the most enchanting time. It was so beautiful, and we dated long distance for a year. And then after that time, we decided I would emigrate and move over there and start our life together. So I packed my bags, sold my car, closed my bank accounts, and booked a one-way ticket to be with my Prince Charming, the man of my dreams. So you can imagine my shock that 3 days after I arrived, he looked at me and said, "Tiffany, I have no desire for you." Yeah, no, that was a shock. You can gasp. It's okay. It actually happened. It's my actual life. And when I walked out of his house, I didn't even know whether to go left or right to get back home to my new house. I had so dreamed that we could live in the same city, and here I was just down the street, and the love was lost. It was pretty traumatic. And then 4.5 years ago, after a 2-year adoption process, I was devastated to hand back a baby that had been in my arms for 3 months, a baby that I had cuddled, a baby that I sang to sleep, a baby that I had baby showers for, a nursery ready, his name on the wall. And I handed him back. It was the most horrific moment of my entire life. Now I tell you this series of unfortunate events to tell you this. Each of those experiences profoundly affected my view on life, my view on love. And your experiences, the hardest ones in your life, have affected your view on life and your view on love. Because pain is a filter we see through. The way you look at others, the way you love others, the way you feel about yourself is all through the filter of the things you've experienced. And we do our best, our absolute best, to repel and silence the screams of failure or loss or defeat. But we can't. But as we see through them, we have to remember that this pain that we encounter, this shame we feel, these things we go through, if we were to just lean into them instead of repel from them, if we were to lean into the tension and stare into the dark, it might just be the greatest asset, not a liability, the greatest asset we've ever been given. Your pain, my dear friend, I promise, is a gift. It is not a curse. In it, you'll find that you are a strong woman and that you are a strong man, that you were built for endurance, and that what is for you will not pass you. I want to say that one more time. What is for you in this life, the things that have been lost and stolen, the things that have been broken in the ground, what is for you will not pass you. You see, the impossible moments of our lives, they are not the defining line in the narrative of our story. They're merely a twist in the narrative. Don't ever believe the lie that the dark days you have will dampen the ones to come. It's not true. You know, we are all looking for a new ending to the broken storyline of our lives. We look for other people to fix us. We look for our accomplishments and our accolades to satiate what we long for and what we desire. But no external force, no external accolade, and no other person will fix you. No other person will fix you. But when you listen and you learn from your pain, you'll find the treasures, you'll find the gifts, and you'll be the person you were always intended to be. So, after I was abandoned and started to work through that, about a decade ago, I had the opportunity to go back to the orphanage where I was left. And as I walked in, it was overrun with little girls, and all their heads were shaved. Many of them had grown out just a little bit, and a lot of them had little black eye makeup and a little dot. And I obviously had a language barrier. Take my Indian card, it's okay. But was able to communicate through a translator and just learn. And you know what? A girl like me who's going looking for answers to the questions she's never had, answered, it can feel like this pilgrimage where all my questions are going to be answered. But when I got there, they weren't. They weren't answered one bit. But what I did glean and what I did gain was compassion. Being surrounded by children who wanted what I wanted. Acceptance, significance, and belonging. And it's the same thing your heart longs for as well. And just a few months ago, the woman who took me in at 2 days old, she tracked me down when I had the privilege of meeting her. We had only 30 minutes together, and in 30 minutes, she told me details of my story that I had never heard before. She told me that she had been just compelled to care for her baby. At that time in the orphanage, there were so many older kids, but she felt like she had room in her heart for a baby. And months later, at 2 days old, I was brought to her. She carried me and she rocked me and she sang to me as her own. The peace I found in that moment just a few months ago was able to be applied retroactively. You see, the peace that we so long for, and sometimes we feel like the dominant story is the one that happened in our lives, but I am here to tell you that peace, it can be applied to things that happened 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And when you apply peace to the past, you are set on a solid foundation for the future. Truly. Although we didn't come home with that sweet little 12-month-old boy, we did come home with a 2.5-year-old little boy, and his name's Jericho. In the Bible, Jericho was a gift to the people of God. It was the first gift of the promised land, so we thought it fitting to name our first son Jericho. This was a little boy who sat traumatized, and he would shake back and forth. But I learned through that experience, through that pain, that love makes a family, and it will always be worth it to put the lonely in families. Always and forever worth it. And then just about a year and a half after that, I had a baby of my own. And for a girl who has no connection to her biological parents, doesn't know, I don't know if I have brothers or sisters, was a product of rape, it was a beautiful thing to stare into a little baby's eyes and see that he had my same smile and he had my same eyes. And believe it or not, he grew out some real good curls out of that hair. And I'm not going to lie, it was a bit of a shocker when he popped out the chute and he was white. That took me for a loop. I'm still recovering from that. I'll let you know. I'll let you know how I work through that. I got one black, one white, and they both don't look like me, but they're both mine, I promise. And they're my sweet babies. And you know what? We learn through our experiences that they're a gift. They make us who we were always intended to be: resilient, strong, brave. The New Yorker published an article, and it boiled down to this, all on resiliency. It said this: frame adversity as a challenge, you'll overcome it. Frame it as a threat, you will cower, you will lose. Our pain, the things we don't tell a soul, the things that eat at us, could be the greatest treasure you've ever been given. I'm convinced of it. Bless you.